Amazing. So, welcome everyone to my podcast, Master Your Emotion and Find Your Truth. And this time, I would like to add with your truth because just having the truth is the one way, but the living and follow that truth is much more challenging way of doing that stuff. I experienced in my life. So, anyway, so master your emotions and live with the truth, speak your truth. That's all what we would like to unravel today. But today is the number 35. I wrote yesterday 34. I don't know why I wrote it, but I was giving that guidance. But I would like to, like always, introduce to my audience who are listening us 35, which number is and what in the spiritual world means. Is that angelic number? So I'm going to give you just a brief information around this. So 35 is like a beautiful number because that's showing us like a lots of positive changes and lots of transformation is unraveling. And number three, that number Trinity number is like a powerful. I couldn't stress enough that how that number is just only giving me the goosebumps all over my place and the body. But number five as well is an amazing number because symbolizing the growth, not just only spiritual growth, but we are the spiritual beings. So mind, body, and spirit. But also that's giving you that opportunity to do with yourself a lot of there are changes on the different levels, but also giving yourself as a human beings um, adventure, just only experience, because you've been given that body to experience that life, and the soul will be just gathering the all information. By the way, if anyone would like to go much more further, just go and find research and do your own way. I'm not going to I'm not going to the disempowering you. So today I've got a beautiful, beautiful guest. Oh my goodness, that's my manifestation. I would like to say. So today I would like to welcome beautiful soul, Barbara Wave. And I would like to just only read it something, what just only prepared for you. So she's a spiritualized psychic reader since 1987. If I'm just only saying something incorrect, please correct me.
I sure will.
Okay, thank you so much. And she has been conducting and documenting thousands of channeling sessions so around the world. But I'm assuming you've been channeling the angels and the light beings, and also she's channeling the consciousness, beautiful consciousness. I would like to say to everyone that Albert Einstein, that's amazing. I was like a mind blowing. I was like, oh, when I read it, it's like, we need to have you in that podcast as well and just on talking a little bit, unraveling something. How did you start? But anyway, we're going to dive deep in. And she created the conflict revolution. And also she's going to tell us a little bit more about it. So what else? Would you like to introduce yourself a little bit and tell my audience what are you doing and where you come from? Maybe a little bit your background. Welcome warmly.
Well, I'd love to. And hello, everyone. And thank you, Gabriella, for having me. That sounded all right, direct to the point. I really started channeling officially in 1987, but I was a child musician and I was driven with this kind of gifted self motivation. So when I was 5, I climbed up on the piano and started figuring out how to play. And when I was 12 or 13, I started to write music. And I described it as going into outer space and listening for the song that was already written. And then I would somehow bring it back and create it in the space. And
Oh,
that really encapsulates to me what channeling is, whether you're a musician who's channeling music, or I listened to a scientist talk about how he did his scientific formulas, and it sounded to me like he was channeling, getting out of the way. And I listened to your last podcast too, and you talked a lot about how the thought mind has to get out of the way as you're creating these emotional visions, I guess, if you're talking about manifestation,
yeah.
right? So that's really how I manifested my intuitive, I'm air quoting here, intuitive arts, so that when I started to actually automatic write and channel something that were voices that weren't just music, I was surprised that I could do it, but I knew exactly what it was. So I was typing a letter and suddenly I was saying something completely different. And then it was directed to me and not the person I was writing.
Mm.
And when I asked, "Who are you?" they said, "We are sound." And I thought, as a musician, so young, that was okay with me. I didn't need to have angels or aliens or dead
Yeah.
people. That was fine because the information was so compassionate and it was all about how to love myself. And maybe that was the first time in my life someone had actually told me some practical things to do to take care of myself and self love and nurture myself and take care of my emotions. So that's really how I got started in that process. I mean, so there's a lot more to the story, but um, I started to become a psychic reader in 1987.
So how has that become? Because it's like everyone got a little bit tiny background. They had a moment, aha, oh my goodness, what is going on? And oh, that's meant to be. Or um, for me, something that happened suddenly, not now, but a few years ago, I just only start seeing the energy. So when I close my eyes, I'm just only seeing the energy. I'm not seeing the body. But my husband, when I just only asked him, "Did you see that energy? Are you seeing that soul inside you, or inside me when you were looking at me?" And he said, "No, I'm just only seeing the black hole." I said, "Oh God." So I would like to just only ask you, and because the audience is so curious, maybe the first question around the channeling: how did you know it's not your own voices, it's not own your imaginations talking to you? Because you ask those questions, what do you want from me? Or just, yeah. So how that's how's that taste?
In the beginning, in that first automatic writing, I didn't know. I knew that I knew what channeling was. I had been going to a channel in Minneapolis where I grew up since I was 16. And
Okay.
so I knew what the process was. And she too talked about she went out into outer space and listened, but she didn't remember what she said to everyone. But she always described herself as an antenna,
Okay.
not like I'm talking to angels or dead people.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So when I started to do that first automatic writing, what tipped me off that it wasn't me was that it was so wise and it was so profound. And it took parts of my life that I was really shamed about and felt guilty and thought were icky, and they reframed them into being like not only meaningful, but magical and important and sacred. And I knew that wasn't me. And that wasn't certainly the letter I was writing. I was angry and I was telling my friend that it's so bad to make judgments. And suddenly it said, because when you make judgments, you shut down the lens of perception. So you only see a little tiny bit
Yeah.
of what's really going on. And I thought, that's not me. But how did I know? How did I trust it wasn't some marauding demon or um, partly because the information was so compassionate and that the information that people were getting was helping them to learn how to take care of themselves. And it didn't sit with me that it wasn't um, really a divine process where I, as the antenna,
Yeah.
was so. But later on, people have asked me this too: how did you know it was Einstein? You have to understand that between this time where I'm an antenna now doing readings for people and I decide I want to do a group channel with people, what would they say? What would these voices, what could I pick up, maybe
And
publish a magazine article? And so when I finally got this group together, and we called ourselves the Psychic Sorority, we still do,
mm-hmm.
and they asked, "Who are you?" And they said, "You can call us angels." And I was skeptical. I thought, what? What do you mean? I don't, but because now there were three of us, we could witness each other. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't just me making up stuff.
Yeah.
They were in on it too. So,
Yeah. So that's why you just only much more, I would like to say, for the most of the rest of the I would like to say, how can I say? I don't want to use the word human. I don't want to use the word people. For another source, okay, who are not really awakened. Okay, that's the best description. Uh, they had I would like to say, evidence on the human level, on the, yeah, that's like a physical form. You are not making your story and you're channeling somebody's, or just only making your own stories, because it was, like Johnny said, there was three of you and you've been confronting, yeah, around it. So how does that goes, and how did you know? Because that's also that Albert Einstein has a big beautiful consciousness. So please, can you tell us a little bit more? Where did you start and how
Yes,
did you start? And have you,
absolutely. Well, go ahead.
no, I would definitely, have you had any kind of the goosebumps or any body sensation? Because that's really, really curious. That's really, really good for the to knowing that stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Well, when Kim and Teresa, who were my partners, asked who you are, and you can call us angels, and I was kind of doubtful. I thought, well, let's go with it. And so the angels said, we have this revolutionary process to resolve conflicts while you're in your body. That's a pathway to world peace. And it's so revolutionary. We need human beings having real conflicts to test it on. And apparently, the three of us volunteered and were chosen to come into this life to test this process they were giving us.
Mm-hmm.
And we were on this mission. They told us right away, this is going to stretch beyond anything you can imagine in your life. And I don't know, we often talk about what did we think? You know, what did we think? But we were drawn to these voices that were opening us up and calming our minds and letting us feel our feelings. And then we finally did have a conflict, the three of us. And so we had just channeled one of the master groups that we'd organized called Conflict Resolution.
Okay.
And the thing that they said was, that struck me so profoundly, was if you're engaged in a conflict, your root is in you. The root of your part of the conflict is within you. Now, today in 2023, that might seem, but back in 1994, when we were channeling, and I was not a spiritual guru, I was a rock and roll, I wanted to be a rock star. So this was something I was doing, but I'm going to lead some mission and
Mm-hmm.
learn this thing. It was ridiculous, but the three of us were so drawn to it because our lives were changing.
Yeah.
And so we did it. We had this conflict. I got the transcript and I read it, and the conflict went from, well, you know, Gabriella, if you would only do this and that, things would be better, blah, blah, to me saying,
Oh.
okay, my part of the conflict is I'm not even listening to you. And each of us shifted that way. And it was a miracle. And from there, everything just started to develop really
Wow.
exponentially.
Wow. That's so amazing. Because if somebody would be just only told me something to do, definitely now I would be just only considering, I would be just only looking, oh, it does cause inside me, or definitely I've got the roots inside me. So I need to clear it, heal it, infusing the good energy. But if you're going to tell me 20 years ago, I'll be just only, oh, my ego will be saying, oh, go away. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And ours did. But we persevered it miraculously. I think this is probably as important piece of the story as Albert Einstein is that the three of us persisted. And they told us all along, these angels,
Mm-hmm.
to keep track, keep a paper trail. And that eventually we published our first book, Diaries of a Psychic Sorority, Talking with the Angels. And it's all the transcripts, and it's all our diaries through that time. And it's our first fight. And it's the beginnings of how we put together Conflict Revolution.
So how is going now, the conflict revolution? Because I just only saw on your YouTube channel, and also yesterday I was listening I was like a channeling, but you've been channeled something in August this year. That was in the church. I don't know. That was something like a beautiful meditation. I was crying. My tears was just pouring down.
Oh,
I don't know what's going on. I just only heard your voice, And then there was that channeling messages. I was like, oh my goodness, I need that. I needed that. By the way, I would like to say thank you for that. It just came. But then, yeah, on your website and also on your YouTube, you've got that playlist, and it's only calling that Revolution about Albert Einstein. So can you tell a little bit more around it?
Yeah, absolutely. We took back in 1999 when we were
Hmm.
doing all this work, we published our book in 1997, and we started to actually develop a workshop and train conflict resolution as a uh, like a office development, staff development program for an organization I worked in Minneapolis. And from there, I started to train it as anger management, as personal empowerment, and then my own workshops,
Wow.
and got created a curriculum for it. So it moved in that direction. But when we published our book, I got us a literary agent in New York to shop the rights to the book because I think the story is
Incredible.
unbelievable. And as time has passed, now it's been 30 years, it's only more incredible because it's all proven to be evidential, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, so she called me up one day and said that there was a tabloid in London, like a paranormal tabloid, that was looking for an interview with Princess Diana on the 1 year anniversary from Beyond the Grave. And I'm such a skeptic. I'm just a natural skeptic of everything. So I was very skeptical, like, what? I had learned that I could communicate with people who had passed on when I started to channel with the group. But that was like Teresa's mother came to me, and the dead people would come to me and direct me to their loved one. And I learned I could. There was a woman with a son who had Alzheimer's who had never spoken. He was 36. And she hired me to channel him to her so she could see if what was going on in her head was real. And
Mm.
after 2 sessions, she said, I don't need you anymore. I know that that's what I hear him saying too. And then a woman in a coma, Alzheimer's coma, that
Oh.
kind of stuff. But to go to a famous person who's dead, and what does that even mean? But being the curious person that I am, I thought, well, let's try it and see what happens. And so I sat down, I channeled the questions, and then I channeled her answers. I typed.
Hmm.
And when I read it back, I wept. It's like you said, I could hear her voice. I was getting chills, and she was telling this very detailed information about her relationship with Dodie and her children. But her big message was if all 40 million people who put flowers at the palace would work for peace, we could have world peace. That was her whole message.
Oh, I got a goosebump. Oh, oh,
And of course, the tabloid didn't want it.
yeah.
Yeah, they didn't want it. So my agent and I said, well, maybe there's other famous dead people who want to talk. Let's make a list and see who will,
Would
and they
like.
all didn't want to. But the next person up was Nicole Brown Simpson.
Hmm.
And that too was remarkable to me. I learned not only, about when you die and you leave your children behind, you're murdered by your husband and you leave your children behind with your husband, that you're not at peace.
Yeah.
But she had the biggest lesson about forgiveness, I think, that we had. And anyway, we went through, and when we got to John F. Kennedy, who, by the way, said back in 1998 that we've discovered now in the U.S. that,
Yeah.
he said that you don't have to keep finding people. We're going to tell you who's next because we're working on this book and we want you to this is
Okay.
what you're doing. So then when Albert Einstein came up in the queue, I just took a breath. I mean, I wasn't any big Albert Einstein fan. It wasn't like I liked him, I loved him, but not fanatical or
He was obsessed.
personally. Yeah, no, I wasn't. I loved of course, blah, blah, blah. But when I channeled him, this is the voice that I had been channeling since I started channeling.
Mm.
It had an accent to it. And I realized later on that it was like a Yiddish accent. I can't even duplicate it. So, and this was sound. this is who was talking to me that day when I started to automatic write and asked, "Who are you?" And it was like, you can see Einstein, he can't say in that moment in 1987, "Well, I'm Albert Einstein," because I would have just,
Yeah.
so we're sound, So, yeah, and he was brilliant. I fell right in love with him as I was channeling him, because it's like, could this really be? And yes, I had doubts then. It's like, but I'm of the opinion that thought experiments, which is what Einstein did, is what we need to do. We need to open our minds, look at things in new ways, and let's imagine, what if it is? So I did a book just for him in 2005. That was the 100-year anniversary of E=mc squared.
Oh.
And that was the book that completely changed my life, because here he was in afterlife delivering the unified field theory that he couldn't do when he was alive, that had complete maps of human consciousness, which is integral to the unified field theory, and a scientific definition of compassion, making compassion a quantifiable fifth force of the universe. And that all just blew my mind, because it was so brilliant. I thought, if this isn't Einstein, well, it's Einsteinian. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really, really brilliant.
So how is that?
So,
Oh, sorry, just keep
no,
going
you
on.
go.
No, I would like to ask because yeah, you've been channeling. So how is that sounds? Because that's amazing. That the consciousness, that frequency. So just when you tell us a little bit more to the audience, that people just they were really curious. How is that? Or maybe somebody who just only start channeling and they've got the kind of the doubt, or that's really true, or maybe it's not really true. So how is that feel? Because are they using, I would like to, that consciousness using your body and just only just going through your voices and frequency, and you're just only talking, or maybe your voice changing, or they just only possess your body and just only coming in and through you. So your consciousness leaving the body out. Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
Good.
it's actually sharing the body.
Okay, so you're showing. Good.
Yes. And interestingly enough, in the maps of human consciousness and the unified field theory, which is the theory of everything, both microcosm and macrocosm, he shows you how that takes place. You can see a visual in his thought experiment of how does he share my body with me. He shows you the map of how that all takes place.
Mm.
And it's brilliant. In those maps of human consciousness and the unified field theory, he can also explain how past lives occur, although we call them concurrent, which means happening at the same time,
Yeah.
but they're in different space times and different DNA bodies, but they're happening simultaneously. So all of his, whatever he brought through me in that time when I was writing that book, he explains how it all works.
Okay, so he was just only giving you those all information, and you just only were keeping writing down them.
Yes.
Okay, so that way. But also the only thing is like I was brilliant. I was amazing. That's triggered me something like okay, the past life is running spontaneously at the same time. So like I'm now living, and my past 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they are that's my past, not the past lives. But also I would like to say, how about the parallel universes? Is the past life is also how can I put it in the question? Is there also the parallel universes? Because how he can see that? Because from my now, uh, you are just only triggered that information. So I'm seeing my past life as my parallel universes too. It's not just only my past life 200 years ago, but they're still running as well with me.
Yes. Yes. So the parallel universe of both this particular life and this particular DNA space-time body,
Yeah.
and other lives that you're experiencing in other DNA space-time bodies and other latitudes and longitudes, right?
Yeah.
I've got one in Ireland in 900, what have you. To understand how it all works, let me just basically show you the map. I'll just talk you through the map.
That would
So
be
first
amazing.
of all, the source is literally located in the center of the planet. So this map is actually a map of the Earth, because that's the macrocosm. The microcosm is that it's a map of a particle that he calls a compilation of consciousness. So every human has their own compilation of consciousness that contains all the mathematics of everything that's going to be Barbara with in November 2023 in this body, in this. So that math is time, latitude, longitude, DNA, and
Yeah.
much more complicated than all that. But
Yeah.
and so from that compilation, there comes a gravitational wave from the center of the planet, which is we call the source. And these terms are actually terms from black holes, is what I learned when I was editing. And he said, Google black holes, take those three terms and put them in here. Okay, so the source. And then that gravitational wave makes its way through the planet until it comes to the outer world of the planet, and it creates what we call the lens. And this is where our bodies are separate. Our bodies are projecting and perceiving that universe in that lens of separation. And then the wave continues on till it gets to the edge of the Earth's electromagnetic field and joins back up with it, comes back up over the North Pole and back down into the source and begins again. So this string is it's the spinning string of string theory that Brian Greene, and it that string is the mathematical, has all of the math that we need, and it has all of the parallel universes on it. So it's our intention of where we're going to focus our attention in any particular life to what universe and all of those infinite potentials in that DNA space-time body, right?
Yeah.
Are there. And I believe reincarnation can mean coming back and experiencing a different parallel life in this DNA space-time body. I think that's another form of reincarnation. And so you kind of have both of what you're talking about, your childhood and all the different choices that you could make, and then other lives. So in that basic framework, there's one last thing, and you mentioned this about 3 being this powerful sacred number. And there's this thing that he describes, it's called the human intention. And what it is this string is spinning at the speed of light squared. And it's the intention to come here and experience as a human that allows us to do that. And what it is it starts in the source, and it's kind of like an arm. I call it like an arm, like it has a, the source, and it goes out into the heavens, and there's this place, and this is part of us. There's a part of us up there called the observer. And the observer is this energetic piece of us that can see what's going on in the source. And then also it's connected to the lens. So at the end of it is that lens that is that world that we live in. So when we intend to be human, this structure based on this sacred geometry of 3 extends out into the heavens and down in, and it's like a prism. It cuts into that spinning string and slows it down to the speed of light and separates it out into light and color and separation. And we have this human experience, creates our bodies. And then when our body dies, this human intention sort of folds up into itself, goes back into the source where all the mathematics still are. But now we're going to have a different focus of attention. So what are you're going to come back in and live different potentials as Gabriella? Are you going to create a new life, go through it? So that's basically how it works.
Yeah, because I had a vision when she said, that's so simple. Okay, from my point of view, from my level of the consciousness at the moment, I'm seeing that life is a game. That's definitely is a game. That's a matrix. My daughter told me yesterday, Mommy, did you know we are living in the matrix? I said, I knew it, that. And they said, oh, that's so fascinating. I said, yes, but sometimes that's really scarce. Because the oldest, she said to me, oh, Mommy, don't, because that's amazing. That's amazing. Because I was talking with her yesterday. She's a 15 years old. I was talking about the projection, about your higher self. The people calling, so I told her that's your higher self, that's the observer, like you said, Barbara, is on the top, and just only projecting everything as watching you. So that's kind of the things I was just going to start telling to her because she had a few doubts around the school, and then she choosing something kind of a subject, and she told me, "Mommy, don't say it like that. That's that's too much for me." I said, "Okay." So just when you listen to yourself and just when you feel in your heart, what would you like to do in your life? So the oldest one, she does, I was really, really afraid of her too much. But the youngest one, she told me, oh my goodness, we live in the Matrix. That's a beautiful life. So we can just only play like a game. I said, that's correct. Play on your own rule, but don't hurt anyone. Just only follow your heart. So like just said, be observer. So step out and just only watch yourself. Like that's what you said, beautiful. That lenses, that prisma, that's the shiny things in front of us. So like I think I was watching the movie. I couldn't remember the name, but it was a Denzel Washington was as a go back to the past. That was a I don't know, that was like a maybe I'm going to Google it in a few seconds, but I can give the rest story. So what was it? They moved to the past. They had the technology and they moved to the past and they changed the past. So something didn't happen in the future, on the lineage future, so on the human perspective. So that's how I'm just only thinking, like it's just only we standing here, we observing ourselves, and we can navigate like a play, that's a Lego, that's kind of the things. Yeah.
Yes, and I like the analogy that in that Lego sort of it's a game. My friend Debbie came up with this analogy about think of when we go to the amusement park. Sometimes we want the Ferris wheel. We want to go that slow, you can see far as the wheel goes. Sometimes we want that gravity machine where the bottom drops out and we're thrown up again. Sometimes we want the roller coaster, but we're
Yeah,
choosing it all. We're creating it all for
that's
ourselves.
true. Yes, we're creating, but sometimes the people just saying, "Oh, why is that happen?" Okay, if they're going to say for me, perfect. But if they're going to say to me, oh my goodness, that's the victim position. But anyway,
Yeah.
sometimes yeah, sometimes like we forgot we've created that things. So how you can um through your own maybe experience, if you had that something, if you would like to share with the audience, how you can navigate the world. If something has happened or maybe happened before, I'm assuming nowadays you are just only completely clean, clear, healed already. I know that's ongoing process, but yeah. So how did you navigate that world? So if something happened for you, but you didn't know that causing from is from you.
From in right. And that was a long learning process of what does that mean? It's a lot of questioning. What does it mean? For example, in one of the channelings early on, they said, deal with emotion more like it's electricity.
Mm.
And I thought, what does that mean? So I was
Yeah.
at the gym one day and I was really pissed at someone because I was mad at everybody all the time.
Mhm.
And I thought, all right, and they said detach the emotion from any thought of why you think you're having it or the reason why it came, blah, 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 and just take your breath and feel it move. And the first time I put two and two together to do that for myself, it was like a jolt because I think what we do is we think, and it stirs up emotion, but we don't really get to feel that whole movement of how emotion needs to move along that wave. That's,
Yeah.
what, and so it was like this jolt of myself filling up myself. And so I like what you said in the beginning when you said to people, we're going to talk about these things, but you got to go figure it out. And that's so exactly what we had to do, what I've been having to do and putting it together. And then, I'm 68 years old. So I've been doing this the large portion of a long time. And I'm finally, after all this hard work, to a place where this is an operating system. It doesn't mean that I necessarily stop external conflict, although it does.
Mm-hmm.
But it's about how to feel natural conflict because there's conflict in the world. People are going to hate you. People are going to want to hurt you. People are disrespectful. There's all of that going on. But how do we love ourselves and take care of ourselves in order to not be swayed hither and yon by what somebody might think of us or what happens in the world, and especially now
Yeah.
that we're kind of poised on the brink of this complete extinction of humanity is not far from people's lips. So what do we do? How do we do this? And I think conflict revolution was a brilliant plan that has been years in the making and has proven to be exactly what they originally said was we're not only going to help you resolve conflict, but we're going to help you make your wildest dreams come true.
That's amazing.
And at the time, see, I thought I wanted to be a rock star. And this is what I would say about manifestation is that I think it's exactly what we need to do, exactly how you described it in your last podcast, where we manufacture the feeling of how does it feel. I'm doing it right now with my first million. That's my new thing is I'm going to make my first million. That's all it is. And so I'm getting those emotions up and like looking at things as if I have the money to do things, but also to let go of even that and know that whatever you call it, I call it compassion. And but God, the creator, there's this big plan in place. And there's things that maybe in a bigger soul level that are part of our math that might prevent us from getting those worldly manifestations that we think that we want. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I would
Yeah.
never have wanted now have been a rock star. What a crazy, insane thing. I would have been killed by it. So yes.
No, the only things I would like to add around the manifestations, and you mentioned about the rock star. So that's sometimes we just only thinking, oh, that's our attachment and our ego just only thinking, okay, or maybe that was like inherited beliefs, or that would be the best way, or how I would like to navigate this world. Anyway, we don't know what the future holds. I love that song from Mamma Mia. Oh, I love it, that song. Anyway, because that was a song I was saying, I don't know what the future holds for me. So, which is great. So, unknown is the best stuff. But yeah, I like what you said. Okay, feel it, but also at the same time let go. But you need to how can I say practice, because I was doing that stuff long time ago. I just only feel it. I was I felt that emotion. I felt and just only was really really holding that emotion. I was wondering why is that manifestation is not arriving yet. But manifestation was around the corner and waiting for me. Let it go. And I said no. I would. That's yeah. That's supposed to be here. So then when I let go, suddenly just everything was like that. So, oh, that's amazing. But we need to feel. So when you feel angry, just stamp your feet, just go and do it, something like that. Yeah, that's amazing.
Well, in emotion in our model of what we're doing, and you'll appreciate this, we have what we call the three human dimensions. So these are the three pieces. They're like spiritual organs. Like the heart
Mm.
does one thing, the stomach does another, and that you treat them differently. If your heart is ailing, you do one thing. If your stomach's so these three human dimensions, emotion, which we metaphorically or really physically put in our solar plexus, intuition, which is the voice of emotion, and emotion is really made of compassion, the whole bit of it, every angry thought, every angry feeling and every joyful feeling, they're all about the creative force of the universe. They underpin all the physical manifestations we have. It's so important to move the whole lot of them on that gravitational wave and not just focus on sections that seem appropriate or high level. Like you said, we have anger, go stomp on some sidewalks, feel it, breathe it, get it out.
Yeah.
And then the third is the intellect. And this is where not only is the ego centered, the imagination is centered, but this is where free will is actually exercised. So intuition will be coming up, impelling us to take a step. And because it's made of compassion, it's always going to impel us to take a step for the good of the whole situation, whatever is going on. That's just the nature of our what we're made of, is compassion. But when it
Mm-hmm.
gets to the ego and the
Yeah.
intellect, the ego can say no to the voice of God within us. It can, intuition can be saying rest, and ego will say, I can't rest, I've got 150 million things to
That's
do and
true.
I have to run around. And that, Einstein says, is the root of all conflict, is
Mm.
that there's this voice of God within us, and then there's this ego that can say no. And this is kind of gets down to the historical roots of why is there evil, to give us free will so we can learn and teach ourselves to choose to work for the good of the whole.
Yeah.
And so, and going back to how does Einstein share my body, is
Oh yeah.
that his string is spinning still at the speed of light squared. His hologram, all the information of his life, his that consciousness that he has, he just doesn't have a body right now. So he does it on that non-physical level between the source and the lens, where he sort of rides my wave with me up, and then I share my intellect, my emotion, my intuition with him, and I remember stuff. And how I
Wow.
physically feel is that I physically feel like it's just me. I mean, I imagine my ego little tiny and kind of out of the way in a little chair where it can rant, and it still says, you can't be doing this. That's not. I put it over there, and then it feels like it's just me, but it's just so incredibly brilliant. And there's a part of me kind of sitting off to the side that's listening, like you might be listening, going, oh, and
Mm-hmm.
getting chills and like, wow, oh my God, that's brilliant. Like I'm observing as well. So, and I don't know, I can't speak on a general sense of people who are developing their psychic ability, because clearly I have this really unusual life. I volunteered and was chosen, and but I can tell people who really want to tap in is that, first of all, you want to tap into the highest good.
Yeah.
You want to tap into the angels, and you want to dedicate yourself to working for the good of the whole system and the whole scenario. And it starts with self. So when we have these three human dimensions of emotion, intuition, and intellect,
Mm-hmm.
we can train them. And Einstein calls it aligning to compassion. So that compassion, as our emotions are flowing up through us, and intuition is impelling us to take that step. And you know that intuition will tell you, turn left,
Yeah. That's
and
right.
you don't know that 3 blocks down is that very person that you wanted to meet. But if you hold on to how it's going to happen, I can't turn left, I know it's this way, you miss these opportunities. So being aligned to compassion means our intellects and our egos are the faithful servant of intuition, and we've cleared our minds, and we understand ourselves so fully, and we're breathing all our emotions, and intuition is impelling, and intellect is then making those decisions to do what intuition wants us to do.
Yeah.
And that will change the world. That absolutely changes the world.
Yeah, that's definitely. I love what you just said about the three things. Like, okay, I would like to say people just only saying also the gut feeling, that's emotion, that's reflexes. Okay, intuition and your intellect. But when you just only go went straight away to the third, the intellect ego, I said, oh my goodness, that game began. So here is as a game. That's like, oh, that's your lesson. Are you going to learn that lesson? Are you going to come over that lesson? Are you going to heal yourself? So here is that. Wow, that's amazing. That's like the water is boiling, and then you can just do something with that. It evaporates outside, and just on you can just only let it go to be, and just only drop it down to the foundation soil. Yeah, that's amazing. I love that stuff. What you only said that. That's so amazing.
Well, and the other piece of that was is revolutionary to me was when I learned that dealing with emotion is a separate function than dealing with intellect. So if you have anger and sadness and depression and PTSD and all the free floating anxiety, the best treatment is to detach all of that emotion
Okay. Mm-hmm.
completely from any story about why or what or how, and use the breath to
Okay.
move it through the body and into, and you can put a affirmation in there. I used to have one that said, I don't need to know why I'm mad. I need to breathe and feel.
Yeah.
And just something simple like that to just get it going. Because when it attaches to the thought that that person over there is an asshole and doesn't like me and he's going to do this and that, now we're bringing that to life. That emotion fuels the thought into reality as you perceive into the lens. So when we detach those two things, the first thing that happens as you feel and breathe is the intellect gets less powerful.
Yeah.
It gets less obsessive.
Yeah, that's true.
And it gives us time to let intuition come up. And if you're listening for it and you're committed to doing it no matter what your mind is doing, then you have the ability to override the old system that gets us projecting and afraid of things outside ourselves. And in this new system where as soon as we take that breath to feel those feelings, we are self-loving.
Yeah.
We are taking care of ourselves. And then the thoughts we have to deal with in a whole different way. So that, if you're obsessing about someone or something outside yourself, revolve it. So if you're obsessing that that person is so disrespectful, revolve it. Okay, where am I not respecting first and foremost myself?
That's true. Yes.
Where am I not letting my feelings flow? Where am I not listening to my intuition? Where is my ego out of balance? And like you were talking to your daughter about observing yourself, when you get that little piece, we call it a sound bite because the intellect is so that you have to take some time to go just boil it down to a statement. What is making you mad? Well, I was disrespected.
Yeah.
Now, that's your job when you get up in the morning to get into your witness, thankful for another day of life. I'm going to watch and see where do I disrespect other people? Where do I disrespect myself? And nobody wants to find that. You don't want to find out that you're disrespectful, but don't
Yeah.
you really? Because now you can change it. And when you change it there, I guarantee you that other person will either disappear or
That's
they'll rise to the occasion and they'll start to respect you.
Yeah, and they come to you and just they ask for the advices and say, well, how did you do that? And can you just only support me in that journey? Yeah, that's definitely like that. But sometimes, most of the time, we need to, as the human form, we need to hit the rock. We need to go really low in our life to do something with our life, to start healing ourselves, start asking the questions. So why 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 I know why that's the belief, but why we supposed to, why we don't go and start straight away? What's going on?
Because that's would sort of defeat the purpose of what we call empirical experience.
Mm,
Empirical experience is the difference between, and this is an analogy Einstein uses, you can go to the library and you can
mm-hmm.
take out every book about flying
Okay.
and you can study and learn. You can sit there, you can even make a little fake cockpit at the table and you can
Okay.
understand it all. But when you go out to the tarmac and get into the plane, it's a whole nother ball game. It's a whole nother body feeling. It's empirical experience that you actually are physically experiencing something that brings you wisdom.
That's true.
So this is the difference of what we're going through, is that a lot of people understand concepts, how to fly, as within, so without. But when you're faced with a conflict, we've never been taught how to carry through the totality of that spiritual belief into those really hard practical things when somebody's coming at us or things aren't working out. So that empirical experience is why we're here. And I think when I started to shift to being less victimized and more like wow, this is the platform that I've been given, that I'm creating to teach me
Hmm.
to ascend and to evolve. Well, let's have at it then. Let's be fully human and
That's true.
throw
Yeah.
ourselves in.
Yeah, that's definitely. So the only things I would like to just only add to here. So that's, I don't know how about the Einstein would like to say something around the, it's like a, so we are here on the soul level. So we are rising our frequency. We are expanding our knowledge and information on the soul level. So we're experiencing that part, that's a tiny part of our infinitive beingness, I would like to say. As like, okay, so I've chosen today being Gabriella, but my sparkle or my past was like a Cleopatra. And that's, I'm experiencing that. I said, okay, I would like to podcasting and other people. I would like to do the training with other, anyway, that's, or maybe I had a really challenging time in my life. So like rising up our consciousness level. So that's why we are experiencing, and everyone is choosing the particular specific challenge in their life to come over and just only learn from it.
Yeah, and it's absolutely tailored. Your life is perfectly tailored to what your soul has come here to learn, and it wants to gain experientially to help
Yeah.
evolve the planet. Mine is specific for me, but at our root, we all function in that same way.
Yeah. So how we can find each other. So we just only playing the game and we just only make the, I would like to say, puzzles, I don't know, riddles, I don't know what else. And some people calling that heaven. Okay, that place where we are, that's no time, no space. But yeah, so how we can navigate this? So like you just said, intuition. So when the intuition is going to hit us, then how is that going to feel? Can we just only talk a little bit around the intuition? Because the people sometimes missing that and misinterpret that word and saying, oh, maybe that's, or maybe that's not. So how you can,
Well, the most important thing I think is to be able to understand the difference between intuition and intellect. Because the
okay,
intellect is so big and there's so much, the imagination is there, and when it gets triggered it goes off, and who knows what, it's just crazy sometimes, that intellect. So the simple way is, intuition is a small impelling statement, and I'm going to say statement even though it's not always words, but I'm going to just use it here for a
okay.
second. Small,
Mm-hmm.
impelling, meaning it's telling you to take an action. It's not reasoning, it's not rationalizing, it's not explaining. It's telling you to take an action. Small, declarative, impelling statement for the next most advantageous step for the good of the whole. That's what intuition does. So
Okay.
it's not about knowing if you should
Should
go
do
to
or not.
university next month. It's about training ourselves with this new operating system to every day we are learning, what is that intuitive message now? What is that intuitive message now? Because it's taking us on those steps that our human intellect and ego can't see, that if you take a left turn 3 blocks down, it's going to be the
Yeah,
person that you need to see.
yeah,
So there's this trust that has to happen. In what I recommend people do is those two things. One is, whenever you're wondering, oh, is this my intuition? Well, try to get that sound bite of what it's an impelling statement, it's small. Is it for the good of the whole? And maybe what would Jesus say, or what would some really trusted wise friend impel you to do if you're trying to figure out
yeah,
what intuition is? And then the other part of it is, this intellect. This is a regime of change that needs to happen, and it's different than how we change emotion. Emotion we do with our breath. Intellect, we have to get into that witness, and we have to watch what we're thinking. We have to see what decisions we're making. And as you hear your intuition more, and then you can hear the ego saying, no, I'm not going to do that, I'm going to do this, and you begin then to start to master yourself. And I'm here to tell you that once this system is installed, it becomes this knee-jerk thing where I still get triggered. I get triggered and I go, well, that blankety blank, he did blah, blah, blah. But then I instantly stop and go,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay, that's my work. He's such a control freak. All right, Barb, where are you? Where's your ego a control freak? And I revolve my focus back to my work. The guy can go on his way. And when I get this, like I said, he either disappears or he rises to the occasion.
That's true.
So, and on a big level, just on a macrocosm of world peace, the angels always told us that we weren't working for world peace. We were working to learn the self-loving, compassionate way. The byproduct would be world peace. And Einstein brought this unified field theory through from afterlife to prove why conflict resolution works. It's a scientific proof of why when we change in here, the manifestations naturally change in the lens, because this gravitational wave, which is perfectly projected into the lens, if there is conflict on this gravitational wave, it's perfectly going to manifest as conflict. If we align to compassion, things change in the lens that we could never have manifested going directly at. It's miraculous. So it's a byproduct of it. So my world peace tour that I'm on right now is to inspire people to think about this inner change as a way to also have a byproduct of world peace. Because once we stop projecting all of our negative feelings onto other people,
Yeah.
and having an us versus them mentality and taking care of ourselves, naturally peace will begin to manifest in places where I think it's been conflicted. That's the experiment.
No, I totally agree with you. What I'm doing the biofield clearing energy, and I'm channeling also the messages from the angels. Anyway, that's all ancestors. That all support from the unseen world. I would like to say light beings, the divine source of the energy. But what I would like to say, if we're going to change internal world, our inside, we can see that, like you said, by manifestation outside, like Einstein said, everything will be changed outside. Because we will be just only blending, like my frequency will be blending with your frequency, my neighbor. So he will be just only receiving my peace, and he will be taking, even unconsciously. Yeah, but we need to, like, I would like to add as well, because that was a beautiful you said, and now just only giving me that, uh, when we're going to be aligned with our higher self, like our compassion, and you just said there's just keeping up and up. So I won't be around us any distortions. I won't be any, like you just only said, a conflict, just going, oh, that way, that way. So like it's just on tearing apart, like, oh, what's going on with me? Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. So we'll
And
be just
then
only,
we contribute.
yeah,
So many people are like, "Oh my gosh, what's going to happen to me?" Or no, we stand up and we say, I'm gonna influence the situation to a peaceful outcome." You don't have to wait to a psychic to tell you how it's going to happen, or
yeah.
wonder if the other person's going to do it. We have the power to do that, to make that decision that I'm going to work this till I get a creative, peaceful outcome. And it works, but you have to get that ego
That's true, but
under
also we'll
control.
be, yeah, that also will be influencing actually psychic. They're saying psychic people, psychic people. Okay, we are psychic because we just only commit to come here on this time, this specific time on the planet Earth, and just only unravel. I've been saying awake in this time, and just say, okay, let's go practice, because we know how to be a psychic, but we just only dedicate and commit ourselves. Okay, we're going to practice because we know that. But we all of the human on the planet that know how to be a psychic, but I would like to say that could be a judgment from my side now. We are too lazy, or we don't know we know. So sometimes I'm talking now as a human. Okay, so that sometimes I would like to just only come close to the people and just like shook and just only give it, just wake up, come on, wake up and do something.
And I think
That was a human talking to me. I'm
and
just
you
coming
are
back.
human. You are human. You are human, and you're also divine. So,
Both.
and this is the part of humanity, being these egocentric,
Yeah.
sometimes lazy, sometimes judgmental human beings. The more we are not even judgmental of our judgmentalness,
Yeah.
and just work to recognize it and get back into that kind of neutral zone where you don't have to just let evil manifest without saying anything around you. I'm standing up for against genocide. I'm standing up against war. I'm standing up against those things, but I'm not creating that war within myself.
Yes.
I'm finding this peace here. And then I can go into those situations, injecting that good of the whole and still have that emotion.
Yeah.
You can have anger and depression and all those things while you're feeling and breathing and loving that movement through and changing your thought processes. I've seen people completely turn their lives around just on simple steps of that practice. Like you say, it's a practice.
Yeah, you need to practice. You need to commit to yourself. That's the biggest part of of this game. Just commit to yourself to do it every day. But sometimes we completely forgot to doing that stuff. But I would like to say that up and down, that's the anger, and that's like I said, I'm a human as well, so I can just only say something. So that's called a spirituality. So that's called a be spiritual human. It's not like a spiritual saying as just cut out of any devices, or maybe just only go as a monk, the Buddhist. I'm not against them, but it's like I would like to say it's much more challenging. It's for you and for me to be surrounded with that all that vibration and up and down and low and high. So that's the beauty of that. So I really admire the rest of the light beings, the psychic or just only light workers and starseeds. They're really wow, just going to the darkness and they shining their light and it's coming, oh, I've done it. Oh, I was so, I know, sometimes like that, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And I personally think that those of us with bodies, this is the most spiritual. I mean, we're given the biggest, the light beings and the angels and even people who are happily residing in afterlife, like Einstein, who has been asked, "Are you going to reincarnate?" And he said, "No, because I can do so much more here from
Good,
here."
wow.
But for the rest of us, they all honor us for the challenge that we've taken, especially during these times, I think.
Yeah. I would like to mention something. I just only was listening somebody's podcast and they told there was a two-way to come here on the planet Earth. I don't know if you agree with that, or maybe Einstein is going to agree with that. It's like a one way, it's like a voluntary. The souls who would like to just only, okay, I'm coming and I would like to change the vibration on the planet Earth. And the second one was like there was push, there was force. So they've been sending because they had a specific frequency. So in other words, they will stick out. It's like, go. That was a recruiter. So how is that point of view? And who are you? Are you just only voluntary or just only said, okay, just go because you've got a specific frequency?
Well, I think that's why they said we volunteered and were chosen.
Oh,
Is that
okay.
so? Those people that really think that they don't want to be here and they were pushed and all
Mm-hmm.
that, that's still the product of whatever that mysterious, magical process that compassion does. Compassion impels energy to step out of nothing and create one compilation of consciousness that's going to be you or me.
Mm-hmm.
And so everything that's in there in this miraculous way, whether you're willingly coming to have this funhouse experience or
Yeah.
you think you don't want to, it's all driven by that mathematics of balance and unity. So if
Okay.
you're, if you've had a lot of lives that were war driven killers, you're going to maybe have some lives where you have some peace and quiet for a minute and you don't want to go because but the next life that's all going to be um integrated and you're ready to go
Yeah.
again. So I think it's all driven by that divine intention of
Okay.
yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, because sometimes people are saying, oh no, I don't want to be here. I would like to leave out that body and that universe, that place called Earth. It's so crazy. So that's why they sign up for it. So yeah, I said, oh, that's really crazy. Definitely, if somebody's going to ask me, I volunteer here. So I'm just crazy. So I created everything in my life. So I don't know why, but another day I will be unraveling everything. Would you mind just only share with the audience, if you would like to, of course, your challenging experience in your life, and how did you come over that experience before we're going to
Mm.
wrap up our podcast?
You know, I suffered from a degenerative childhood. I was sexually abused by my father, and my house was a war zone. So there was a lot of dissociation that went on.
Mm-hmm.
And it took a long time through my whole life to deal with this kind of mental illness. I called it, I mean, I didn't identify it that way, but there came a point when I wrote Imagining Einstein, where I left my then husband and I moved across the country and I launched this book. And I spent 4 or 5 years traveling the world, teaching and training conflict resolution and
Wow.
channeling and singing. Even I got to sing, but underneath it all, I was dealing with this incredible dissociative disorder. And it took me about 4 years of this
Wow.
equally high time of my life with success to going into the darkest parts of like the sexual abuse and finally coming out the other side of it after about 4 years. I described it as clawing my way out of a hole by my
Yeah.
fingernails. And I found this book called Stranger in the Mirror.
Oh,
And it was written by a psychiatrist, Marlene Steinberg. And it was basically conflict revolution, a revolutionary way of dealing with dissociative disorder that had all the elements of conflict revolution. So
wow.
I went through 4 years of this horrific pain. I mean, I must have cried for 2 years straight. And then to realize I was finally out of that hole. And this
Oh,
was the confirmation. And since then, I've had a lot of struggles, but I have to say in the last, especially through COVID,
yeah.
is that a lot of all of that has come together now in this unified field. And the work is could not be any more important right now. People want to talk about it. They want me to come and do an event. They want to see me. They want to do this. And it's really exciting. I've been trained my whole life to be here, and now here it is. And like spirit is guiding me to. I can't tell you how many times people say what you said. Oh, I was just praying. I was just intending, and there you were. It's like, okay, here we
Yeah.
go. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, I would like to say maybe that was like a 6 months. I was just on, and then I was just only saying, and then I said, okay, I let it go. Okay, let's go. Wait, I just only completely forgot. And then one day, oh my goodness, oh, I said, okay, let's go in it. Oh, thank you for sharing this. That's really, really touching. Um, would you like to then say something to my audience as really uplifting, or if they've got a really, really challenging time? So, what is going to, I don't know, inspire them or just support them?
Well, I would say that despite how the world looks on the macrocosm with the wars and all the global conflicts, or how it might look on the microcosm with all of this incredible emotion that's
Mm,
so hard to take, this is a time where compassion has never been more prevalent on the planet. People are rising up now in to talk about peace and compassion, and we've been given this power to master ourselves. And I know it's hard when you're in the depths of depression or
yeah,
anxiety, but that first time that you can step outside yourself and take that breath and detach from the thought and pay attention, it's that small of a step that all you need to do to start building on that intention. And that's the hope of the world to me, is that we're creating all the dysfunction so that we can uncreate it and then we
yeah,
can recreate it. So
yeah.
that's the good news.
Yeah, that's amazing because you just only said sometimes like I said tiny, but that would be a milestone. Like, oh, that's so tiny, but a milestone for them. Amazing. So where the people can find you if they would like to contact with you?
You could go to barbarawith.com. That's BARBARAWITH.com. And that's kind of my personal website. But synergyalliance.llc is the master website. It has all of the Synergy Alliance. It has the Psychic Sorority, all of our books. You can look at, I have
Wow.
live events coming up, and
When?
you can, I have an event in Austin, Texas on November 10th and 11th. I don't know if that's passed when we're airing this. I'm also speaking in Minneapolis on November 26th. And I have I'm headed over to Oslo, Norway in December for a couple of months. And
Wow.
I want to get over to the UK for
Please
sure.
come.
I would love to see you, and if there's anything we can collaborate, I've got three other podcasters in the UK
Wow,
who have
amazing.
said the same thing, and I thought, well, why don't we get together and do something? I mean,
That would be amazing.
with
I'm in. I'm really in. Just let me know when
okay,
you would like to.
I'm putting you on the list then, Gabriella, because they're all, everybody's excited about it. So I'm going to mid December. I'll be going to Oslo, and then I'm staying there till about mid February. So somewhere I'll find the
That's,
perfect time to organize us all and come and see you and keep the conversations alive.
yeah, that would be so powerful. Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing.
And
Wow.
I'm being invited. I'm here in Corpus Christi. I've got some friends here before I'm going up to Austin, and I just got an invitation to come back and do something at someone's salon. I've been invited to Kansas City just the other day, and so everywhere I'm going, and that's the intention. When I set out on this journey, I rented out my home to a neighbor to for his needs for the next 6 months, and I'm just on the road with this message and doing this
Wow.
work, and it's
Yes.
really exciting. I'm guided by spirit, so.
Yes, amazing. That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming here today. And
Mm.
definitely, if you would like to just be with me another time, because you've got so much knowledge and information I couldn't grasp. We didn't touch even just we touched just only surface, just only a little bit, because I would like to talk a little bit more around the angels, around the people who passed away, and also dive more in Albert Einstein. Oh my goodness, metaphysics, that kind of things. Oh God.
Let's
That's
do it.
a
Let's do it
lot.
again
It's a
soon.
lot. That
It's
would
a
be
great
great.
conversation. Just love talking to you. It's great.
Amazing. So thank you so much, and we see you soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.